Okay.
Now we got this phase.
Hello, I never say to my fans.
We were. So, all right, we can get started. Okay, so let's do a quick roll call. So present, we have Christina Amato, Gregory Nato, and Robin Diana Pearson,
Here,
and myself. Of course, we have Robert McCollum, our attorney, and we have Chair. Yes, of course. So proof of notice was sent out. Does anybody have anything? So proof of notice was sent out. It's item number 2. Item number 3, we're gonna need an approval for the minutes for the last meeting, for the member meeting. Did anybody have anything to bring up from the minutes for that meeting? Or are we ready to?
Yeah, I move that we approve the minutes from the June 12th meeting. I submitted.
I second it. You need us to repeat our names.
Not for that vote. It's up to vote.
All in favor?
All right, so motion was made and that's second, so all in favor? Aye. Abstain, opposed? So then, so there's an item here, which is, going into executive session, which, regarding sale of real property.
You
Now,
wanna do that first? Do we need Michelle to approve you first?
we
You can save it to the end. I only put it there because.
were
Yeah,
hoping to have, our attorney present.
Mhm.
Matter, so I don't even know if we want to discuss it, and also, we don't have all of the parties that are actually trying to this thing here to.
So, I do propose executive session. We don't have to do it right now on the agenda, but, as per our retreat, after we left the retreat, Yana and I met a few times over the summer about some of those issues we discussed. And one of them, that we would like to go into executive session about is regarding, hiring, employees. Right, what is that officially called when you go into executive session for employee
Yes.
discussion?
Yep.
So we don't have to do that at this point, but, I would like to do that before we adjourn,
Okay.
if possible.
All right, so we can definitely move that towards the end, so then we can move into the treasurer's report.
Okay, I am going to do this because Adam is not here, so you guys tell me if I'm doing it correctly or not. We will start, let's see, do I do all of them at once, or do we have to vote on each one of them separately? We're doing all 3 of them.
You have to read through all 3 of them and then they each need their own vote. So however you want to organize that.
Okay, so I have to go through the headers and the amounts, correct?
Mhm.
Is that right? Okay, so we'll start with June. As of June 1st, opening balance was $146,706.30. We had deposits of $11,598.23, mostly from the cell tower. We had disbursements of $17,378.14, for a closing balance of $140,926.39. In payroll, we had an opening balance of $89,547.92, with total June expense of $8,992.99, for a closing balance of $80,554.93. And I could read each one of these individual funds. In the application funds, we had an opening balance of 14,137.50 and the same closing balance. In the lesser tenant account, we had an opening balance of $2,400 and again, the same closing balance. In the labor monitoring account, we had an opening balance of 15,000 and again, no change, same closing balance. The money market account, we had an opening balance of $4,794,973.34, with interest income of $13,596.71 for a closing balance of $4,880,570.05. Can I take a motion on accepting June?
I move that we vote, what?
Okay. We would
So
set
moved.
that, yeah, so I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, abstained?
Then you need one for the actual paying of the
For the same one.
bills of the check numbers.
I also need a motion to pay the bills of June.
I move that we pay the bills for June.
I will second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Carried. Can I just ask Cher, I had seen previous drafts of this, and I think that this is the same one that I had gotten prior. This is the draft that has all of the redundancies and everything taken out.
This is the same one I emailed you earlier today,
Okay.
if that's what you're asking.
Okay, July. July, we had an opening balance of $154,001.50. Deposits of $289,651.70. Again, from June, cell tower deposits and from county. We had you want me to read the disbursements or just the checks? No,
I
okay,
typically do the amounts.
of the
The
disbursements, we had,
total amounts for the disbursements, and then if anybody has any questions.
Mhm.
you can ask about that.
we had two disbursements, one of 300,000 and one of 96,705. We had checks paid in the amount of $405,162.02. With a total closing balance of $38,491.18. Our payroll opening balance was $80,554.93. With payroll expense of $8,356.01. For a closing balance of $72,198.92. The application funds opening balance was $14,137.50 with no change for the same closing balance. The lesser tenant account similarly had an opening balance of $2,400 with zero change for the same closing balance. Labor monitoring as well had an opening balance of $15,000 with zero change, closing balance of $15,000. Money market account, opening balance of $4,808,570.05. The transfer to $4 million for Lakeland into the CDs. That was a total disbursement of $4,030 for the wire transfer fee was the $30. That was a total, left a total deposit account of $406,473.27 with a closing balance of $1,215,013.32. Lakeland Bank had a 0 opening and closing balance. And I believe that was the account 5836, but then, the CD account had the transfer in of the $4 million for a closing balance of $4 million. So this is July. Can I take a motion to approve?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is the Orange County deposit, rent?
For rent.
Okay.
Yes. I think what I, after we go through these approvals, yeah, I think we want to discuss some of our cell tower.
I also have a quick question.
Cell tower deposits, yeah.
So I see the interest rate collected for the month of July for the balance, for the big transfer.
Mhm.
And then reading it says, go back to July, 9,768.
On the second page, yes, 9,000, yeah, interest income.
That's in the total disbursement, right? Positive.
All
All right.
that's, the 9,000 is on the money market account.
I'm talking about July first. sorry.
Yes, we're still in our account.
I'm going ahead of myself. Okay, so far good. Pretty good.
While we're there, the $1,250,000,
Mhm,
that's the money market account,
correct.
but not in Lakeland Bank.
So that's the money market account. So we have an operating account. We have various other fund or tenant accounts, like a labor monitoring. And the money market account is earning, I think, 4.5%. Is that right? And then the CD, we have a certain CD rate, which is the last account, which is the $4 million. 1.25 is just the money market, which is separate from the operating account.
So it's separate, it's in a different account than the 4 million.
Yes,
It's 4 million in the CD account? Okay, I'm sorry.
yeah, like
It's
that.
okay, it's the first time we're going over it in a board meeting.
We have currently two banks, correct?
Yes.
So we do have a money market account and a CD account with Lakeland. We have, our operating account is still with Wells Fargo, is that right?
TD.
And we had most of our direct deposit transfer, a lot of our existing banking was set up with them, so it was easier to leave operating with TD.
Right, and as we discussed in the past, I'll just leave. What did you say, 40,000, 50,000 in that operating account? And then if whatever balance, keep transferring it, so you'll keep seeing, those transfers going into the money market account, so,
What's interesting, not a sidebar, but what's interesting right now is the way interest rates have gone. At least we're seeing in the market. Traditionally, the money market account had a little bit lower interest rate than a CD. If you could lock into a CD for 9 months, 12 months, you're getting a higher interest rate, which was the case when we went into this. Right now, with the way the market is, money market accounts are actually earning more than CDs. Money market accounts, the benefit of them is they are same-day liquid. So if you're just having money sort of sitting around for operating, it's same-day liquid. They still have to sell it out of that account, but you should keep whatever kind of the bare minimum you want in your operating for paying bills, for paying payroll, for things that you know are going to happen within that month. But any bigger balances or any balances that we accumulate should be going into at least the money market earning. That interest rate probably is even higher. I think Lakeland's at 5% now on money market.
Wow.
I asked Lakeland what her rate was for the money market or whatever, the checking.
Yeah.
It was 4.4, but TD's operating account, last time I asked him, I think it was very close. It's either in high 4 point something, or it was like 5, same as,
Yeah, so, and that's something that we can do, you can follow up, your contact at Lakeland and say, we have another checking account or money market account. That's this rate, can you match it? But so it's worth it to keep whatever excess deposits we have, so we'll probably moving forward some transfers of those excess amounts, at least in the money market, and then, as an investment committee. we can decide if it flips and it's better to put it in CDs and we don't have any immediate for those balances, then, but in the meantime, even for small amounts, the money market is
So when we,
great interest.
thank you, Chrissy. So the 300,000 all of the transfer ins, are they coming out of the money market account?
correct, because I cash the checks. And then I have to take them out of there to put them into the money market account, so that's why.
Because I was just a little confused in the transfer, the difference, what is transferring out and transferring in?
Just between different accounts.
Yeah. Okay.
Money market and operating checking to money market, that's always the way it goes.
So our operating account, right?
That's always the first one on all the reports.
First one.
So we had deposits.
I got
going in,
142.
and then we paid bills out of it, and then the closing balance right is the 38,491. This is for July, so.
At the start of something, it's more of a suggestion. And, because now there are more moving parts than before, maybe we could have another column with probably, maybe even 3 months, so we can see a visual of the change over 3 months possibly.
I can send you a template like that, and we do the similar thing, so where you show your accounts, whatever cash balances are, whatever at the end of the month, you do what the balances are, and then we do prior 2 months next to it so that you can see, or, well, in our case, because we do it every month, but probably when we looked at it last prior 2 months, you can see where things have moved. Okay.
Perfect, yeah, very helpful. So then we need a motion to approve the number and then
Pay the bills.
further. So I make a motion to approve of the
July.
the July numbers and the paying of the bills for.
Can we do it in one, or we have to do it
Should
in
be
separate?
so then I make a second motion.
So
No, just do the
first
one,
motion.
yeah.
Do we have a second on the
I
first? motion?
second that we,
Right.
For the treasurer.
approve the treasurer report.
For July. Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, just saying. Okay, wonderful. I need a motion to pay the bills for July.
Pay bills for July.
Second.
I'll second it.
Very good. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, great, motion passed. We will go on to August, at least. So, August. And we will start with the operating account, the opening balance. So let's see, is this maybe a typo? Closing balance of July was the 38,491.
Nope, it's missing that.
What, the opening balance?
Is the opening balance, Michelle, in August? That doesn't make sense, right? Opening balance is 3,000. At the very minimum, it should be 280 something. All right, well, we'll have the,
Yeah, the closing balance as of July was 38,491.
The closing balance means through here for the operating account, it's never going to really match QuickBooks. Because what we're doing is before is through the current checks we cut, we don't account for checks from the months before that are clearing.
From other vendors.
Well,
but
that's any checks from prior months that haven't cleared. We don't list on that. We don't list which ones of this month have been cleared already.
Okay.
right, Michelle, but if you look at opening balance for the month.
Yeah,
of-
no, that can't be right.
Yeah, so we can,
If
we
the
should
prior
pause it then.
closing balance was 38,000, according to, I'm guessing, but I guess it should be right around, it could be 30,000. I will have to double check, so.
So can we go through the rest of the treasurer's report and approve that pending, change to the opening balance? Yeah?
Okay.
So the deposits, for this month, this was for the month of August, come to 106,561.48. Disbursements, checks, were paid out a total of $8,248.22. So the closing balance says it's 101,314.09, but we will check on that number as well. Payroll account. Opening balance of 72,198.92.
Now, what happened this month is, in error, the bank gave us interest on all of our accounts,
Okay,
Which bank?
every single account operating.
TD Bank?
Yes, TD Bank did this.
and is there a reason they're not giving us interest on all our accounts?
So,
And it's higher than the money market.
so when we did the RFP, they said that they would give interest to all of the accounts, but we have to report and explain some of it for the other accounts. And it's like complicated, to say a better word, but I think some of them we should not, like what's it called account, the labor monitoring account shouldn't be bearing interest. Some of them should not be. So the only ones that should be are the operating and the money market. And when they issued the RFP, he was like, oh, I can give you interest on all of them. And
No,
that's,
so the payroll, it should though, the payroll is just essentially we're just pulling money out of the operating and putting it in a separate account to hold it for payroll. There's no reason not to be earning interest.
I'm trying to think, for audit purposes, the way we report interest, would there be a reason why we couldn't do that?
So the labor monitoring account that you and I talked about should not have interest.
Mm-hmm.
If it does have interest, then it should go back to the applicant at the end of the day.
Okay,
The money market accounts, I mean, that's your money, do whatever you want with those. On the payroll accounts, I know people get interest, and then I know people don't want interest on a payroll account because the money's gonna go back.
well, it's gonna go out, I mean, but we have,
It's ultimately it's your money. I'm not sure how, if there's an accounting issue, there shouldn't be,
it's just reported, it's just interest
just
earned,
interest earned.
it's just interest earned.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, theoretically, if the bank is
Able to
holding
do
the
it.
money and there's interest to be made on it, we should be making on it, and the money that's sitting.
And to your earlier point, they, unlike a few years ago, they're all paying lots of interest.
Right, but yes, this whole interest thing is a new wonderful thing for everybody who's holding money in banks.
All right, so out of all of them, you'd be interested then in the payroll account?
Well,
Because-
any of the ones that we're allowed to get interest
Right.
on, I mean,
The lesser tenants, labor monitoring,
labor monitoring, I mean, if we have multiple projects that go into that labor monitoring, if they're not kept separate, then it is accounting wise, a very difficult thing to distinguish whose interest it is. If it's just one labor monitoring account, then, you know, in fairness, if they've got money with
I
them.
mean, right now, yes.
mm-hmm,
It would, and at the end of the day, the applicant would get their money.
mm-hmm.
So, and that's my personal opinion, it's the money sitting for that.
All right, so
The
I'll,
only one, the only ones that have passed to those accounts that would bring, that's it, everything else makes sense, I mean. If it's our money, then yeah.
And when we say complicated, are we talking about from a reporting perspective?
Well, it's just an accounting.
Like when we
it's
get
just an accounting
audited,
process.
it does come up. I can't, it's a one time a year thing. I can't remember in what capacity it came up last year, but it does come up like, what are you earning and why or why not? And there was one reason I knew with the labor market.
ABO.
I can't remember. But like, I'd wanna research that just before I say it, like, it's just safer to not do it and then like to figure out why and then.
Well, if you can, if you do discover reasons why certain accounts shouldn't have interest, certainly, but it's an account, it's just another function of accounting.
Yeah. I'll try to research into that and why, but for sure with the payroll account, it sounds like it could. happen.
Okay, so let's say payroll account, we stated opening balance of the 72,198.92. We discussed the interest reversal. We made payments out of 8,101.95 for a closing balance of 64,160.19. The application funds, opening balance, 14,137.50. Again, we have the interest, income, discussion here. The closing balance stated was 14,151.44. Because the reversal will not happen until next month, unless, of course, it doesn't need to happen, then they can continue to pay with interest. The lesser tenant account, opening balance of $2,400. The interest, income, issue, which may or may not be reversed next month, for a closing balance of $2,402.37. The labor monitoring account had an opening balance of $15,000 with interest income again, and a closing balance of $14,079. The money market, yeah.
That sort of stays the same. Does that mean there's no activity? Because we don't have any projects that are being monitored?
The labor monitoring account is sitting there for the hotel. That's the amount that we, what's the word I wanna use? We estimated that it would cost based on.
Right, so your Loki Brill, who was your consultant for that. When they looked at the project, they estimated that it would be, their fee could be as high as 15,000. So at closing, when we closed on the IDA documents, we collected $15,000 and created that account. They haven't done anything with the project yet, so it's just sitting there. If if they never use, if there never is any labor monitoring, which we don't expect, that's their money, they would get that back. Similarly, if there's any interest on that, it's their money. At the end of the day, they would get that back. If Loki Brill only spent $10,000, then the balance of 5 plus whatever interest would go back to them. So it really isn't like the nature of an escrow account. It's being held for for the Loki Brill benefit, so that when the project starts, Loki Brill sends in an invoice, you're paying it from that account.
And we're only monitoring one applicant?
So you started, the labor policy came into effect 2 years ago?
Sounds all right, a year and a half.
Yes. I'm sorry. It was just before the approval of the hotel project. So it was March of 22. So the projects that you had before that, 104 Washington, Foundry, I think that's it. Didn't have any labor monitoring. Seisha's project, 191 will have labor monitoring if we close that project or when we close it.
So the closing has to happen in order to.
And it's 191 will have to have its approval, but we did in June, and we're waiting for him to tell us when he wants to close, because he's trying to get back. similarly with the hotel, as I understand it, that's one of their doing. They are having difficulty getting bank financing because of interest rates and interest rates aren't going down. Well,
Thank you.
But you have,
Yeah.
let me know when you're done.
No, it's okay.
But is that?
We haven't, no, I haven't gotten through the, let's say,
Money.
money part. So we have an opening balance of $1,215,013.32. With interest income and a closing balance of $1,218,784.85. The Lakeland Bank account, which is just an account, had an opening and closing balance of 0. The Lakeland Bank account that has the CD in it has an opening balance of $4 million and a closing balance. So I'm assuming with that closing balance of the CD, we have not reported interest from the CD, right, Michelle? Right. Have we earned interest in August though, because we transferred it in July?
That's that one.
They said that they would give me quarterly statements, and I think they said that usually it's reported at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Are we able to like see it?
Yeah, when I get the quarterly statement.
That's the only time, so we can.
I wanted to see if I had something monthly to give you. There isn't. It's
Is
just
there
quarterly.
online access? Do you have
Yes.
that? Yeah.
Mhm.
And it doesn't show it.
It does not, and that's why I called, because I was like, how do I get this? And they said, you'll get it quarterly. So there's, we printed in the files, you can see what we see for the month. But it's not a statement, it's like has their logo, sorry?
Turn October.
So we should get it at the end of this month, right?
Yeah, we should get it
Quarters
in
at the end of the
September
month.
quarterly.
So you should
Okay,
get
well,
2
so we
months.
will have
You should get 2 months.
interest update on that on a quarterly basis.
I can confirm with you if you'll see the interest on a quarterly basis. I think they said you'd see it at the end of the year, but I think you still get a quarterly statement. That's what I think is how it goes.
Well, the statement should reflect the interest, that's the statement. Okay, so, yeah. I will take a motion to accept the August treasurer's report.
I move that we accept the treasurer's report for August.
I would just, sorry, make a clarification that
Yes.
with the clarification of the opening, closing balance of the operating account. Once Michelle gets that.
I'll get to it tomorrow.
Any second?
Alright, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Passed. Okay, I will take a motion to pay the bills in August.
Pay the bill.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Well, okay, yes.
You wanna?
Like, you know, I mean. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so on to the chairman's report. Okay, so, on the 13th, was it? We were actually given the opportunity to take a look at the progress that the Foundry had made. And, actually, I think I speak for everybody was pretty impressed by the work, the quality of work that was done by the gentleman over there. And, so, that was basically one of the biggest takeaways, is just how the progress and, you know, we also got a better idea when it's gonna be fully finalized, which hopefully is within a month or so. There's a few things that they're working out. If I remember correctly, one of the things is stuck in manufacturing, it's out of their control, but they're pretty much on time with a lot of stuff. They also let us know that they have had a good relationship with the city, with the permitting and all of the inspection, which is good news, right? Given our history. So, yeah, so that was a really good experience. It makes me happy to see, something actually completed, that would call it completed at this point, you know? That's something that we had a lot, you know, basically, we played a big role in that, so that's pretty good, and I hope that everything else that we work hard on here sees the light of the day, so that was pretty good. I would say, I'm gonna speak to something, that I brought up in the past in communication, so we also invited council and, obviously city management too, right, because they're involved. I would have hoped to have a better turnout, frankly speaking, you know, it's a pretty big deal, it's a pretty large investment. And I personally actually followed up with the mayor a few times and didn't really get a response, so I'm pretty disappointed. You know, you know, I hope that we get more interaction, specifically, especially since we have a certain past where there's been action from council based on the lack of communication from us. And so I'm gonna hold them to the same level of accountability that they are gonna be holding us. So, you know, I'm not saying this privately, I'm saying this publicly. I hope that there's more involvement with that. And maybe also too, from our end, and I spoke to share about this, we're gonna actually set invitations even earlier, even before when things start to seem to popularize, so that there is less confusion or whatever comes with this stuff. So, but overall, I'm pretty happy, right? I just want to say I'm really happy with what's happening there. And then thinking about other things that we talked about to the memorandum that you shared with us, Bob, because we want to get creative, right? We actually have an ability to make other impacts in this community. So what do we do with what we have, right? That's one of the big questions that we have. So, I actually wanted to bring this out here and see if this stirs any sort of conversation. Since we are obviously going to be following the guidelines stipulated on us, everything that we have to do by law, right? So then what are some creative ways? There are other towns and cities that when we went to the meeting, they were already developing commercial, residential with commercial use. And we're in there too, in the mix, but we were hesitant in the beginning, we didn't really know. So it opened up my eyes to actually being a little creative. So with that said, one of the things that I thought of recently is if we can't officially fund something in the community that's impactful, right? About it, like if you have anything that is like triggering or anything, or if you think that there's a better wording, please help me. But what I'm basically thinking is, if whenever we do have an applicant and there are fees that they'll be paying us, maybe there is a way that we can take on those fees and then have them donate the equivalent amount, like a particular cost. I don't know if that's like a possibility, but I would be personally, if that's within our ability, I would totally do that, given that there seems to be a lot of limitations when we do their funds, right? and still be able to make additional impacts, because it's almost like saying to, the way that I think of it is almost saying to a developer, okay, great, you can do this, but maybe we want trees, right? It's almost the equivalent in my mind, but you know, I'm not the expert in it. So I'm hoping to see more projects coming in, and hopefully that means more revenue for the IDA to continue to do what it's doing, but there are other things that we can do hopefully. So what does it, you know, what does the board think of that? Are there any thoughts?
Would that be appropriate to include when we talk about community benefits?
Yeah, that's exactly the way.
Donations to, or.
Organizations that are really work.
I think we have to go just a little, be careful with language. The idea of tying it to your closing fee and maybe offsetting that with certain requirements is doable. As almost anything is okay if you have a project.
Right.
You need a project.
Right.
Okay, you can't, the board can't create a project unless you're buying property and doing something with it, which is also okay. And then have an end game to get rid of it, to dispose of the property. Okay, but if you have a project, it's a lot easier under the statute.
Right.
To then provide
Consensus.
through an offset, some additional types of benefit.
Right.
You're still limited to the actual benefit that you're providing, but if you create strings that go with certain projects, that I think is something that we can certainly look into exploring how to do that.
Yeah.
You know, the idea, there's a, just trying to get the exact language, there was an ABO-ish, order or decision opinion provided several years ago that all IDAs in the state collect fees
Right.
at a closing of a street use deal or a bond deal. Those fees can be substantial if the project is substantial, and were designed to fund the IDA, staff, projects, other things. It's interesting how there's nothing directly in the statute that says that the IDA could do that. There's also nothing in the statute that says the IDA can't do this. The ABO opinion, I'm trying to remember the language, it was probably in 2011 or 2012, indicated that there was no authority for the IDA to collect fees, but there was no authority to say that it can't, and they used some weird term. So I think there's a lot of cover for a position to say we're deferring collection of a 1% fee, closing fee, provided that this project does X, Y, and Z. You know, gives.
Okay, got it.
Gives
Yeah.
trees, gives sidewalks, does.
And that's why
Provide some of that.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
We already have something like that, or I don't, that's what I think.
Right. No, I think that's a good point. And I think that's something, again, it's tied to a project.
Right.
Almost anything is possible.
Right.
All right. If you're creating a project that doesn't exist, unless you own that parcel of land, it's next to impossible under the current statute.
So something like, I know at one point the city had some kind of requirement that developers would contribute, whatever they contributed, 1% of it would go towards the arts. And then they put a moratorium on it. Is this the type of structure that we're?
I think that's what you're talking about. I would not, sitting here today, I would not want to say that the arts would be something that would be
We have to pick something that creates
Well,
jobs, or.
It's easier if it's related to the project. Okay,
So in terms of
So
location.
additional
or
open
use-
space or park space related to.
street lights.
Okay.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's not what I was thinking, what I was thinking is, yeah, I was thinking where, like where Yanni is, right?
Right.
So maybe you could fund something, since we can't directly do it, but because it wouldn't be tied to a project that it would be.
So if the thought of there was the thought of doing something by the treatment plant that we talked about it there. I mean, if you were to somehow finance a project near there and it was ancillary to that, I think that makes, it's all part of the project.
Right.
I researched the burial issue, which I wasn't aware of, but that's really incredible. But you could not just fund that unless it was somehow related to a project. And with your mindset, it would have to be, if the city decided this is where we're going to put these remains, and there was a project next to it, or very.
Well, or like, for example,
Or
if
close to it,
the IDA had something to do with the courthouse, where the remains came from, we would
Yes.
then be able to help direct
yes,
where they went, or
yes,
help be able to fund their
Yes.
next step,
yes.
if we
Well,
were part of
you
it.
could fund through deferral of your fees that you would otherwise pay, that you would otherwise collect. Yes.
Wait, say that again?
So you could cause the funding of that project by the developer by deferring the fees that you would otherwise require.
The requirement that it will always have to be that it's connected to.
It has to be near a project. It has to be
Well, so
related
this
to
is
the
a
project.
project by project basis, as things come up. I mean, obviously, we've already approved
Right.
the hotel site, but if there was something specific to the hotel site that we wanted to say, we will forego a fee in exchange
Right.
for, like, we want you to put more street lighting, we want you to put more, X, Y, and
Right, so you're accomplishing what I think your goal is.
Right. It's still doing something.
It's doing something more than just the right project, collecting a fee and moving on to the next project. You're giving back, you're helping give back to the city,
Right.
to the projects, you're making the projects a little bit better.
Right.
And you have, a healthy balance sheet now that you didn't necessarily have a year ago.
Right, exactly.
So why not,
Right,
to your point, I think, why not put some of that to your benefit? Can't do it forever,
right,
because at some point, if you do it forever, the balance sheet,
right,
this is.
is not there anymore, and so whatever that number is, but you can still fund payroll and
exactly.
all your other expenses, and yet, because you're flush,
Yeah.
you can make a decision project by project that, a certain percentage of the fee is going to be deferred if the developer agrees to these types of things.
Right,
Mhm.
okay, all right, that's a somewhat of a compromise that I'd be happy with. But it's still, it certainly hits that note that I adding to, the positive impact of a project.
I mean, if you think about it, it's no different than what you did as a board for the founder. That was a complicated project. It was a unique project because there is no commercial there at all. And, we were trying to avoid them enriching through the pilot by selling
Right.
Units
Mm-hmm.
or during the first several years and getting all this additional income back. They can't do that. If they do those types of things, the pilot is gone.
Right.
And everyone, every unit pays full freight.
In what stage in the process would you engage what he's talking about?
I would do that very early on.
Okay, so it can't be after the project was, after the pilot was approved, it should
It would,
be,
I think that it would be a question for the applicant at the public hearing.
Okay.
Um,
Well, or
Or-
discussion even up front. with-
discussion up front, review of the project, review of the location, figure out what else could happen there.
Right.
And then I would make this part of the approving resolution.
Okay.
So it's.
That
Like labor monitoring requirement or like a.
No, that makes total sense. The approving resolution is the,
Right, so the
the final
approving
seal.
resolution right now typically says that they'll pay the closing fee
Mhm.
in the amount of blank. What it'll say is that they're obligated to pay the closing fee in the amount of blank, but in lieu of collecting that,
Mhm.
they have agreed to the following.
Right.
Okay. If they don't do the following, they owe you.
Right. Okay, great. Yeah, so from my end, there's nothing else that I would wanna add. Since we are gonna be looking to go into executive session for action questions, but other than that, no.
Am I up?
Mhm.
Yes,
Good to see you. I hope you all had a good summer. I just have three quick things. One, the hotel, which we already touched on. Nothing's happening. I check in every 6 weeks or so with council. They're still pursuing financing. At some point, because that closing occurred last September, we will have to amend those documents because the pilot ended at a certain date that projected a 2-year construction period. Obviously, that's not gonna happen. So at
Can
some
I ask
point,
a
we're gonna have
question
to
about
amend that. Mhm.
In the conversation that we just had, and for Chair's question of this has to be part of the resolution, or final approving document. Since we may have to amend the final approving document or create, amendment. Is one of those things that we can offer, because this is a project that we really want to happen. Can we offer them some of those expenses or those fees to help defer financing costs, or to give them that sort of additional incentive to be able to get over the finish line?
So I would like to look at that question, and here's why I'm hesitating.
Yeah.
You collected a closing fee. It's now part of your
Right,
bank account,
balance, yeah.
okay? What you can do at that point is severely restricted, as was the point of the memo, severely restricted to a project.
Mhm,
You can't pay for stuff unless you own the property.
right,
The question that you're raising, I think, is, can you identify the amount that was collected a year ago and say to the developer, we'll release the fee back to you if you do A, B, and C?
mhm.
And I don't know the answer to that.
Well,
I need
if
to
you
think
do
about
A, B, and C, or
Just as a.
as a, well, not as an incentive, but if they're having trouble making their numbers work because of the interest rate environment, because of
A, it's not, I don't think there's gonna be enough money to offset what the.
what their hurdle is.
But B, my concern is that under what the ABO defines,
Mm,
and I have, and I'll talk about this in a minute. Is that a gift?
mm. Okay,
And my fear is that the ABO will consider it because the money's already here,
you're
that you're giving them a gift.
right,
That's different than not collecting a fee that you haven't received yet by saying
use it on lighting.
you're deferring it and use it on
That's why.
these
Pertaining.
benefits to the project.
Right.
Whereas you already have the 100 grand. 100 grand is not gonna make it, whatever, do you remember what the fee was? Probably 125,
Something like that. Mhm.
that's not gonna make a big difference on that project.
I know.
But my fear is if you release 125, it's a gift, and if you pay for it, you have no authority to do it because it's not your
It's
project.
not our project.
It is and it isn't, but the time to do that was.
Okay,
But I'll think about that and I'll report back.
Where are they engaging at the bank?
Like,
Lakeland.
They were with someone else and, it wasn't Pioneer, it was, who was the lender that was involved with, the boundary first?
Isn't it Rhinebeck?
Yeah, it was like that.
Mhm.
Originally, they started with Rhinebeck and they couldn't get it done with Rhinebeck.
No,
It's a really tough on the environment.
I'm sure.
Really sucking the interest rates as high as they are.
When we went to the conference. There was a state agency that makes, that finances anything having to do with environmental.
The Green Bank,
The Green Belt,
Yeah,
they, that's a possibility. There is something that comes.
so I used to represent the Green Bank, there are a lot. Their lending was supposed to be just environmental initially. They've expanded a tremendous amount. They still require a portion of the project to have some benefit to the environment. Okay, so the project that I did for them was a hydroponic garden, which was really cool.
Yeah.
The other project that we were going to do for them was solar related. So, you know, you were talking about how you cool your home. You know, that type of project, the Green Bank would be all over. Because you're reducing footprint, carbon footprint, it's energy related, it's environment related. Green Bank would be all over that. They tend to do larger projects. Much larger projects. You know, that project as well. They would definitely be interested in something like that if he had an environmental hook to it. I know that he was trying to do other state grants at one point. I think they have some grant commitments, if I remember correctly. Obviously, you know, in the state, you have to do work and then you get a grant. New York doesn't pre-fund grants. It's the opposite. You have to do work and then get reimbursed.
Yeah.
Which makes projects tough. I think what's working against him is Newburgh, the lending environment, and the interest rates are not helping. Because he did a pro forma, I'm sure, 2 years ago. With interest rates that were at least half.
Less than half.
Yeah, I have a project in the South Bronx, it's a chain, it's a beautiful power school project. If they had financed 2 years ago, it would have been constructed already. They would have had a 4% interest rate. Now they're at we'll close next month, we'll probably get a 6.25%, which for a charter school is like death. And they can't really construct yet because construction costs in 24 months have gotten, exponentially. So, we're financing a purchase of vacant land with the hopes of building and another financing in 3-4 years. 3 or 4 years from now, interest rates may come back. Construction prices,
Pipeline.
construction prices will never come back. So, I don't know if that school will ever get, the plan is to finance it, but if it ever gets financed, and it's a pain because that school teaches every class rather, in Spanish and then in English.
Wow.
Which for the migrant influx is exactly what they need, because most of the migrants can't speak English. So to get Spanish and then English is like, this is like the school for you, but that's just not enough money. One of the things I wanted to say in my report, nothing new on Scobie Drive, that was the only other thing. I have copies of a report for you that was done by the ABO. So the ABO does reports a couple of times every year. Most of them are ho-hum. They try and find some criticism, but most of the criticism on IDAs and other public authorities, really just little stuff. This is a scathing report that was done on the County of Chautauqua IDA. Misuse of funds for purposes outside of projects. Gifts to board members, gifts to staff.
There goes that.
The payroll, undocumented, no documentation. Failure to report certain things. I mean, it is scathing. And it's a shame. I mean, I used to do that bond work years and years ago. And I know the firm that does their day-to-day work. And I almost went to work for that firm. And I was appalled when I read this. The ABO doesn't have a lot of good things to say about IDAs generally, but here they threaten censure. It's kind of like a public, you shouldn't have done this, if they don't act within 90 days. I presume they're going to act within 90 days, but if you read their response, I'm not so sure. Their response is kind of like, yeah, we'll take care of it, but you really shouldn't be monitoring us in the first place. I thought it would be really good for you guys to have a copy of this and read it. It's good background, just so you know what their kind of things they're looking at. It does go through fiduciary duties of board members, which they were not doing or not, or haven't been doing. Didn't make the papers around here, it made the papers out there. And Chautauqua was closer to Ohio than any other state. And I hate going there, but it's a really in-depth, illuminating report of what some of your colleagues, compatriots, have done and shouldn't be doing. And so it's a good roadmap to, I thought it was important enough to give to you guys, make sure that you had it, read it at your leisure. Have questions? It's good. When they do audits of IDAs, they usually provide a checklist of what things that they're looking for and things that you should have on your website, and they've expanded that from time to time. So this is really expanded this year, so this is great. And Sharon, I said to Sharon, that you use the roadmap to identify where you're not in full compliance. Like they're looking for a little bio on each board member, which is not on the website.
It is, but I'm missing one person,
Okay.
so I've asked multiple times.
So
Teresa.
Oh, wow.
So it's good. They're lurking out there. It's not just the good senator.
Right.
From Orange County. There were others out there. So it's just keep in the back of your mind, read it. Let me know if there's any questions. They do have a bunch of recommendations as well. So.
Do you do, I know somebody else does, like an audit of our website? Do you do that or no?
I do that occasionally. But
As
usually
a service?
I don't usually include it as a service. I can.
Mhm.
But I did that for my client in Salamanca. That was specifically my second project for them, was to review the website, and what I said to them, because they're very tiny. Salamanca is a location. Well, they don't own the property. It's all leased by the Senecas. So you lease a 100-year property, you build a house, and at the end of your lease, you leave the house and you go for it.
Wow.
Kind of crazy. But their website was awful. And so I did do that for them. And my arrangement with them is I review them every 3 years. So,
Well, I mean, we're talking about redoing the website anyway.
Yeah.
We know that there's probably issues because.
Well,
But
yeah,
I'd be interested in.
one
it.
of the things that I thought was that we give this checklist
Oh, okay.
to the new developer.
Oh, okay.
And have them fit that into
Mhm.
whatever they provide to you. So that you have that, and then it's easy to update once it's there.
Yeah.
It's hard maybe to get it there, and on the current site, it's maybe impossible.
Mm.
Because I couldn't get on one day last week. Popping off.
The city.
Well, that's a whole conversation with
Yeah.
one of our resolutions, I
Yeah.
think.
So that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. This-
Hope your summer was good.
Huh?
Hope your summer was good.
I got very tan. I was very relaxed.
Oh,
and, I played a lot of golf, or more golf than usual, and continue to play bowling. And I had a grandson, so.
A very, very cute graphic.
Congrats.
Your
I
turn,
wish I
Shannon.
was there.
Yeah, so for me, I attended a couple of webinars this summer. A lot of the ones that I told you guys about, I tried to attend myself. A lot of them, as Chrissy would know, are based in urban planning principles and, you know, like what do I write about this? The whole thing makes sense. The complete streets and all of that, you know, yes, we understand how changing sidewalks and all of that would be great. So like one of them, I was like, what do I even summarize about this? But the one that I sent you guys a link for today, if you didn't get a chance to see it, again, really good information. Just talked about Utica and how they've become, I guess, like a refuge city for immigrants and refugees. And they had their mayor and a couple of other important people talk about how they really embraced the immigrant and refugee population. And so I just thought I'd just shoot out to some of the interesting statistics that they had, because it was very like New York focused. And I think a lot of that, like Newburgh is exactly related to this stuff. So 1 in 5 New Yorkers is an immigrant, which is nearly 23%. 32.5% of entrepreneurs are immigrants. And 30% of households in Utica speak a language other than English at home, which I think is probably representative of here in Newburgh. And they mentioned just that, you know, people often think of refugees and immigrants as a drain, and the city of Utica found a way for that to not be true and to bring them into the economic development world instead of looking at it like, oh, these people are coming on our turf. But they found a way to like spin it in a different way. And they have Bosnian, that was one immigrant group that like really struck out, because you don't really hear that, but they have like a big Bosnian group, Karen group, and they've just found a way to really celebrate all of their cultures and their flag and all of that.
How did they figure out how to employ them?
So some of them come with like a status already where they can work already. They've like with the refugees especially, they're not involved in that process of getting them working status. They come with the papers usually, but I think it's more so changing the attitude of like, we don't want them here versus they're an asset and they're actually the ones who are going to be the entrepreneurs and open up businesses and take
And
chances.
I think that that's one of the sort of the big issues, and I don't know if Bob or anybody else knows. As a small business owner, most people understand the great benefit of having this diversity of workforce, but unless you're willing to employ them off the books, you know, not all of them, the process to get those working papers is very difficult.
Yeah, that wasn't discussed so much. It was more so that they came with that status already.
If they're coming in with that status, they already, it's,
It's already
you know,
taken
they're
care of.
already got it like that.
Yeah, they've already, I mean, the
They-
people
they're-
who we're getting right now who are coming across the border as
It's
true refugees don't have any of that paperwork.
But
done.
if you're being brought in, which usually is the case where you're actually brought in, you didn't walk yourself in, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Like that they already have. an
Yeah, if
easier, process to actually even become eventually a US citizen.
Yeah, if you're applying on the outside, if you're applying on the opposite side,
Mm,
Mhm.
you're arriving with
Gotcha.
Right.
Working.
Yeah, and they have something, I guess New York State has something called Welcoming Week, and basically the city of Utica partners with the organization that I guess tries to find places for these refugees, and so they're just basically an ally, so they get most likely people already that have kind of gone through certain parts of the process, and not so much what you're talking about is like, oh, I just arrived yesterday with nothing, with no papers. But yeah, just, it was really interesting on how they kind of, you know, embrace that, and how they really, a lot of the stuff that a lot of the emails that I get recently are about the DRI application, the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, and we don't really play a part in that because that's planning and economic development for the city, submit that application, but you know, they use that as part of their DRI, which was focusing on how they were diverse and how they were going to use that to build up particular areas of certain communities. So just interesting, but you know, unfortunately we're not part of that, but you know, always encouraging to see what other people are doing with similar issues that we have here. And as I mentioned with Marlon or Chrissy, I met with some of the members of Lakeland Bank over the summer to instill confidence in investing in the city of Newburgh and letting them know what a great place this is and that they should fund projects here. And yeah, basically kind of just being a contact if they have questions or they want to know more about a particular project or what is going on here and what else besides, you know, the hotel or Seashore or whatever. It's like, okay, sure, use me as a sounding board and I will tell you what's going on here. So they did ask for some other additional information that I'm working on getting for them in terms of appraising, which I think I spoke to two of you about, appraisers. So I'm working on a response for them. But yeah, just creating that kind of like face-to-face relationship, so that way we can be on a phone call basis of having them call. And then as I might have mentioned to some of you, I reviewed a contract a little while ago, and then it was with Bob and with Michelle. We have a project called Murphy's Ditch, which is basically an easement that we have in the town of Newburgh. And upon review of that contract that I just happened to be reading one day, it said that if we had that upon receival of 2 certificates of occupancy for 2 buildings on the Home Depot Plaza, that we would be awarded 55,000. Well, not awarded, that's a bad word. We would be paid 55,000 per certificate of occupancy. Michelle found no such record of that payment. I submitted a request for that payment and for the insurance, because that was also mentioned in the contract that they were to supply insurance that named the IDA. I got the insurance. I never got the check. Bob sent a really nice letter, and then we got one of the checks. So we received, that was one of the 55,000 that you see, I think, on the August
Yeah.
treasurer's report. So he's working on figuring out, we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's before we ask for the second check.
Trying to make sure that there is, in fact, 2 CFOs issued for that also.
Mm-hmm.
They gave up the 55 really quick. So hopefully there was enough money.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so it's always good to look at old documents. That's what I have for now.
I don't know if this, so we have a few projects that we're working on and we're very excited about them, but I'm also on the ARC and we review stacks. So there's other stuff going on in the town. There's so much construction, there's so many refurbishments of buildings, so we're not seeing a lot, but there's a lot going on.
Right,
So we just need to keep our eyes open.
right.
And be optimistic.
In the town or the city?
In the city,
In the city.
in the city, like we're reviewing 40 applications.
In a meeting?
Do you have,
Commercial or?
Some are commercial, some are, I mean, shops are being redone up and down Broadway where they're applying for store, front, restoration, people redoing their stoops and, whole buildings being redone there. And so there's a lot of exciting projects that are about to come our way.
Yeah, and just to mention one other thing,
no, finish.
you know, I reached out to the UTEP consultant over the summer to try and see where we were with that. I didn't really receive the response I was hoping for. I did reach out one more time and I was hoping, but I haven't signed that contract yet. because I reached out 3 times and never heard back via email. And then we had a phone conversation and it seemed like it was gonna go good. I wanted, I mean, like, I don't work as a consultant, but like, you know, he said he had offered to like do a review of IDA projects to see like what a UTEP would need. And that was 3 weeks ago. I was hoping like, you know, hey, just to show the encouragement and then, you know, I would sign it and I haven't heard anything back. So I will respond back, CCing Chrissy on that, and see if, you know, what response I get from that. If not, like, I'm kind of fully prepared to just go with the other quote that we had received. I just kind of want to throw it out there, but I'm just kind of having a hard, I feel like I'm pulling teeth a little bit. And I don't want to do that. So, you know, I think the other people we had could do the work, but obviously I was excited on diversifying and using different consultants for this project, but it just kind of hasn't worked out. But my hope was that I would have had something for you at the September meeting, but maybe by the October meeting, we can approve somebody else. And if this doesn't work out the way I was hoping,
I
but
mean, at this point, it sounds like to me, someone is like, well, researching to see what other IDAs do.
no, they were gonna research our past projects. So they were gonna look at our past projects to see what kind of applications we get in to know what gaps need to be filled in the
You
UTEP.
don't have enough cadence to actually, you know what I mean? But I just wanna say this thing, and a lot of times Sharon mentions that she reaches out to people, to like vendors and people that work with us. And it's like a really toned down version of what's really happening, where she's having to chase a lot of the people that we're paying or that we're gonna be paying. So I just wanna throw this out, the next time she mentions that, I want all of us to really pay attention to this, because sometimes it's actually ridiculous. Okay, so.
I mean,
This is actually
Yeah.
pretty bad, I'm saying, you know, so. Throw it up.
Mhm.
I mean, it's like when we did the logo, they were on time, they were super efficient,
Yeah.
they gave us great idea.
They
Like,
all-
it was like clockwork.
It was like, yeah, we had a meeting, okay, when are we meeting in the next 2 weeks? And when are we meeting in the next 2 weeks? And when are we meeting in the next 2 weeks? And it was like, boom,
It was
boom,
like
boom,
a
yeah.
seamless,
Yeah.
really fabulous process. This should be the same.
Well, so what it sounds like is happening, there is these consulting companies who understand the UTEP and understand the process, also understand the fiscal impact analysis and all of that. They can help with the UTEP process, which is a certain fee, but is a one-time fee. And then the ongoing review of the projects, of every project, which we do, which does a fiscal impact analysis, which is an additional fee for every project. We have a separate company who we really like, who does that. We are asking these guys to do the one-time UTEP fee. And as far as they're concerned, my perception of this is that they're like, why are we going to, we put in the effort and we do that, but we don't do these UTEPs really for that fee. We do it for the ability to get the reoccurring fee every time the project comes up. And so they're kind of ghosting us because they do have great experience in doing this, but they know that they're not gonna get our ongoing business. So, you know, we're kind of not as important as maybe other people who wanna go through the UTEP process, but really are going to be the reoccurring sort of subscription fee. Which is difficult, which makes it difficult to,
Yeah, I think I'll maybe somewhere.
to diversify that costs. It may just be that we have to handle a little bit more, like guys who do our ongoing impact analysis, which we really like, but to get them to a UTEP that we're looking for the things we're looking at UTEP.
Mhm.
And I'd like to add a perspective to that. Did you finish? Yeah. Which is, foundational things are very difficult to get past, and lots of times we're trying to diversify, but it's only at the tip of the iceberg. And so I see this happening where there's a door to access, but not really, because the foundation's already been laid. and things. I'm not saying this is you, but it ends up being like a token, it's not really a penetrating strategy for diversifying or bringing in, people of color as merchants and contractors, because the foundation is all sold up.
It's already, yeah.
And so we just have to, if that's anything we're really committed to, we're gonna have to dig a little deeper about shaking up some of the foundation. Because, just like your house, you can't change the foundation of your house. You can put nice windows and doors, but you cannot change that foundation of the house. And so these are systemic issues that don't get solved by our good intention. And certainly, I know you're hearing correctly here. But because it's not really about you. I'm like really connected in alignment with what you're trying to do. But it means looking at some other decisions that we are very secure in, and maybe having to shake those up at some point. And I think part of what could happen with that is the benefit of having some honest communication with folks like that. Because, if you didn't say what you just said, I'd be thinking like, so what's up with them? There's an irresponsibility there, not really accountable. But if you didn't add that, that's something that when I said it's good experience, like, oh, so the next time, like, let's just be honest about this. This is like a one-time deal. There's no openings after this. Or what would it take? Because we're really interested in you. What would be real in terms of building a new relationship, knowing that we already have other relationships. But these conversations can be very exciting if we just put it right out there.
That's a great point. Yeah. Thank you, Greg.
The one thing I'll add, just quickly, if you guys remember, Katie Kemp was an associate, and she left to go to a different firm. Hopefully she's not happy. But we did just engage an attorney, David Kraft. He's a 7th or 8th year associate. He's like incredibly great. And I told him that at one of the next couple of meetings, I'll introduce him to you. And similarly with Katie, if I can't make the meeting due to a conflict, now that I have all these grandchildren. Represent. And again, I think he's a 7th year. Katie was a 4th or 5th year, so he actually has a little bit more experience than Katie did. Although Katie was obviously great. So
Can I request before we go to the resolution that we do the executive session, because something in executive session is relative to the resolutions. I make a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel.
I'll second.
I
Okay, let me pause the recording. So we just came out of executive session, motion made by. I just want to say, so to come out of executive session, a motion was made by Chrissy Amato and seconded by Marlon Ramos.
And no decision was made. Okay, so item number 9, new business. So we have the 2 resolutions. First one, right,
So this is the renewal of the 2 Corwin court lease that's been discussed for some time. I think we wound up with ultimately just a letter to extend it, which is that been circulated?
It's the back.
Part of the back piece. Yeah. So it's a very straightforward resolution just to extend the lease in accordance with the terms of that letter.
right. All right, so
Can I make a comment?
sure.
I'm gonna vote no on this because they just very low down. I mean, I'm one of the members there, and I just got a letter saying that they have there was a debt protection thing that we've been paying extra for as long as we've had a credit card with them, long time. And they just went and contracted with somebody else and said, and you're not going to have that benefit anymore. So I'm like, okay. And it's just like,
No discussion.
no discussion, and that's like, if you're unemployed for a while, you're covered. This is serious things that could happen to people in this community. And they went, and I don't know all the ins and outs of the industry, so I can't say that there's nobody out there who we could contract with who would maintain this kind of service for our members. But we have really, renewing and supporting this bank. And I wanna really get them to demonstrate how are you servicing this community. Because in 1975 or 1985, they were servicing this community. And over the years, they have withdrawn,
Yeah.
you know, and, so I just want that to be known, and I want us to really push them back. And so this was a hard decision for us to make when it was given in good faith, and you never really demonstrated how you're still committed to that.
So what is our option? I mean, they're just trying to exercise an option, which is part of legal conduct they already have.
I would like to make a motion, to ask you to consider making a motion to go back into executive session.
Okay.
Has to do with real estate.
Okay, I will
For
make a motion to go into executive session to discuss acquisition and disposition of real estate.
A second.
Any,
All in favor?
I,
Opposed, abstaining?
okay.
All right, so,
We came out.
okay, yeah, so we just came out of executive session, no decision was made. The original motion was made by, like, really,
Christina.
Christina Amato, and second by Gregory now.
So, yeah,
No vote made.
I think based on sort of the point that we're at, we have some questions that Bob is going to review for us. I propose that we table this resolution until we get some more answers. Anybody second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
All right, so we'll move on to the resolution, of the RFPs for the PR firm. So are we going to extend it or in order to do that?
So this is just so I can issue,
Oh, the RFP,
put
okay,
it on the website, but nothing else.
so,
Does this now cover what we might want in the future? So what-
Possibly you're establishing a relationship. So if you look at the RFP, look at what the stuff that it includes. I think maybe that'll help you.
Yeah.
Scope of services, develop branding, marketing, and advertising plans that support the agency's marketing objectives and strategies. Create an integrated advertising campaign strategy, but that may include but not limited to strategic PR planning, media relations, content creation, social media management, crisis communication, event promotion, monitoring and reporting, spokesperson training. Yeah, so I mean,
Additional
So
services.
it's not restricted.
It's very broad, and I think
Yes.
in case you're thinking of some expansions, you could certainly use whoever you select to do addendums to an agreement to include additional services, as long as it's consistent with the overall aspect of the option.
all right, so we need a motion for the issuing of the RFP.
I move that we approve resolution number 2023-09-18-02.
All right, do we have a second?
I will second it.
Okay, I'll do a roll call. Marlon Ramos.
Yeah.
Christina Amato.
Yeah.
Michael Kelly is not here, Adam Pollock is not here, Gregory Nato,
Yes.
and Yanya Pearson.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, so anything on item 10, is old business?
Yes, so I wanted to just bring up the RFP for the website. So we received responses, which I sent you a link for. Two of them were from New York. Out of the two from New York, one submitted you a $40,000 quote, and then the other one submitted you a $12,000 quote. The one that submitted you the $12,000 quote did have experience working with other IDAs or other New York State economic development world. However, I would like to know if you would like for me to extend the RFP, because Ashworth, who was somebody who we worked with to create the logo, was not able to. And if we would offer her extension, then we should extend it to everyone. So if you like, we could extend it another month to see if that would allow her and maybe other potential Newburgh, New York centric people to apply. I always get people from California and India, you know, wanting to apply.
We
for
also
these things.
want to extend because the website where we currently have this RFP listed has been down for a lot of time.
I don't know, it might have been down for like a week or two. I mean, anybody who contacted me, I just emailed them a hard copy. But yes, that also could be part of it, as it was down for a little while. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. And then it would give other people a chance. So if you don't wanna choose anyone just yet, then let me know if you want to extend it. I know Marlon and Gregory kind of are the most interested in the design process. So I did give you a hard copy of the one that I thought probably was the one that you would have wanted to consider. That was the $12,000 one. So if you want,
I would
yeah, let me know how long
like, whoever, right, but.
you would like to see a proposal from them.
So, especially since they weren't able to, they had, if I read it correctly, they wanted to.
And how the interest.
Couldn't get in time to do it.
Yeah, family emergency. So how long would you want? So we're at September 18th. How long would you want me to send it for?
I mean, I would wanna have another list by the next meeting, that's because that we do wanna make a move on Saturday.
So the next meeting is October 16th, I think. So do you want me to do it like,
2-3 weeks.
well, that only gives you 2 weeks to apply, but yeah, that can
No,
work. Look at
I think
that.
we should extend it to October 18th and then we will review and vote on November 18th. I know it's,
Is there any way we can do just a few days before and be able to review before?
If I get it, so the meeting's on a Monday, it just depends on the two of you. Are you gonna look at them and review them like Wednesday before and offer your recommendation to the board by Monday?
yes,
You can do that then.
okay.
Yeah, I think we should move some.
Right, and you know.
Last weeks. It's just short of a month.
It's in, we also have to think about it, it's in addition to whoever wants to apply, so we already have people.
Yeah, we already have.
So, you know, it's
Okay.
just another opportunity.
That's fair.
So what's the Wednesday before October
The
16th?
9th is homestead order
Hold on.
indigenous people, so it could be well.
October 11th would be the end date.
Yeah, that's a Wednesday, Wednesday the 11th.
So yeah, you know, that's the last day. They can send it way before then. So whatever I get, like, you know, Wednesday evening or Thursday morning,
Okay.
I will send you a Dropbox link.
Up on the simple or something.
Yeah, and just review them really quick. Okay, I will do
Alright,
that.
alright, so that's for old business. Are we good? Can we get a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Alright, Do I have a second?
My second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No, abstaining. You, oh, this one?
Yeah.
It was that.